Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio.
Today's guest is Ashleigh VanHouten, a practicing health coach who is leaving her mark via far-reaching content efforts, including a podcast, Muscle Maven Radio, and a book, It Takes Guts, the first user-friendly guide to cooking and enjoying organ meats, as well as understanding the value of nose-to-tail animal cooking. We've known Ashleigh for a few years and have been interested to watch her own health coaching evolution. In this candid discussion, she walks us through a lot of it and offers incredible advice sound bites for any health coach at any stage in their journey, whether just starting out or considering a pivot towards something different. We'd love to have you screenshot your podcast player and tag us on Instagram at Health Coach Radio. By the way, the show notes for this episode and all previous episodes of Health Coach Radio can be found at primalhealthcoach.com/radio. Enrollment is closing very soon for the fall semester of the Primal Health Coach Institute Level 2 certification course, an advanced coaching course that teaches you how to create transformational coach-client relationships, which in our mind is the best way to grow your coaching practice. We start on September 2nd. Not only will you learn and practice advanced coaching skills, but this course also satisfies the educational requirements to enable you to sit for the NBC HWC credentialing exam so you can become a board-certified health and wellness coach. And fun fact, PHCI has a 100% pass rate for the board exam. Stay tuned to the end of the show to learn more or visit primalhealthcoach.com/level2. We start real soon, so grab your seat now, and I can't wait to work with you. Okay, we know you'll take a lot away from today's conversation, so without further delay, let's have a listen. Please enjoy this discussion with Ashleigh VanHouten.
All right, Ashleigh VanHouten is in the house. I'm so excited to have you here. How are you?
I am wonderful. I'm so happy to be here. I'm pumped and I'm honored. So I can't wait to chat with you guys.
Well, awesome. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. So I know who you are. Erin knows who you are, and I'm sure members of our audience will know who you are, but not everybody. So would you give us kind of the 3 to 5 minute Ashleigh VanHouten backstory?
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do it in 3 to 5 minutes. You guys just shut me up because I'm a talker. Like you guys, I host a podcast. I'm a health coach. And I'm also, as of this last year, an author. So I'm very excited about that. But I'm kind of just somebody who loves to learn about health and wellness and fitness. And I've managed through a lot of hard work and luck to kind of combine the things that I'm naturally good at with the things I'm interested in. Because my background really wasn't, fitness or health or nutrition or anything like that. My background was more in the area of like communications and marketing and things like that. And I did that work in a corporate setting for a long time while I was pursuing all of this health and fitness knowledge sort of separately for myself because I liked it. And the more I kind of went through it and the more I realized what really I was passionate about, I thought life is too short to put on a suit every day and go to an office and let's see if I can, combine the things I'm doing for fun and not getting paid for and see if I can start getting paid for them. So it's been a long but fun learning experience for me. And I'm really excited at, where I am now and what I get to do every day. I feel so fortunate. And ultimately for me, again, it's just about learning, and the fact that I can share what I'm learning or pass anything along to people that is going to help them is something I just feel super grateful for. So yeah, I get to do awesome stuff every day and call it work. I'm pretty fortunate.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I feel that. I love that sort of natural curiosity and eagerness to learn. I think that's a skill or a trait perhaps that health coaches and health entrepreneurs, kind of walk around with. So you describe yourself as a podcaster, a health coach, and an author. So let's start with the podcast. Tell us about your podcast. So is that the first thing it's the first thing on your list of this is what I do. So is that sort of your predominant thing?
I think it's probably predominant in terms of how much time I'm putting into it on a weekly basis, I suppose. But I think it's interesting, and you guys probably can relate to this, but when you do sort of either work for yourself or you're a coach or you're a freelancer or whatever, it sort of is always shifting, right? So I have these kind of buckets that I'm always filling up, but some weeks or months, something takes priority over another thing. But the podcasting, I feel like I was sort of like a health writer and journalist first. I got kind of my start with Paleo Magazine, which is how I learned about you guys. It's how I learned about Mark Sisson. It's how I learned about everything that sort of formed the basis of my knowledge and, that I built on. And so I wrote for them for, I don't know, 8 or 9 years. You guys have probably seen that over the last year, they've made some changes. So that's kind of their evolution, but it was a really, really good learning experience for me because I just was exposed to so many smart people and even products and companies and things like that. I just really got to be immersed in it, which was very cool. And because I was writing for them so much, the opportunity came up to host their podcast. I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about podcasting. I knew nothing about the industry whatsoever. Of course, I just said yes and was like, I'll figure it out. But I get to talk to people for a living. That's basically my dream job. So I kind of hit the ground running with that and did that for a few years. And then when they kind of did their business pivot, it was actually really a turning point in my career. And this happened at the beginning-ish of the pandemic. It's literally been almost a little over a year that I've celebrated this major change in my career because it was a turning point for me where I could have said, okay, goodbye to Paleo Magazine, goodbye to this community that I've built really painstakingly over a few years and really felt not necessarily obligated, but I loved that community and I felt like I'd put a lot into it and I didn't want to just say goodbye to it. Yeah. But it was kind of one of those things that I felt like it was a little bit beyond my control. Like it was like, well, it's not my podcast and they want to move on. So I guess I got to do something else. And I spent some time with it and I decided to purchase the podcast, rebrand it and turn it into my own so that I could keep the audience that I had built, because the other sort of decision could have been like, well, just start your own podcast. And I think we all know how difficult these things are to start from scratch, how difficult it is to gather an audience and get attention on things, especially in a market that's quite saturated already. And I just didn't want to let go of the momentum I had built. So I decided to really kind of invest in myself for the first time. And instead of saying, I'm going to help another company or I'm going to do this for somebody else and keep honing my skills, I said, I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going to put my name on it and let's see if it works out. and it has worked out. It's done really well and it's continued to grow. And it's been so much fun for me because I get to obviously have more kind of control over who I talk to and what I talk about and, the decisions that are made about the podcast. So that's kind of what's happening. I think it was May, it was a year that I've had my own podcast, which has been really awesome. And I'm still writing here and there, but mostly now I'm writing for myself. That was kind of the big pandemic thing. It's like, okay, I'm stuck here alone. I can't hang out with work colleagues anyway. So I might as well just be selfish and do all this stuff for myself. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to do my own podcast. I'm going to create some programs. So I really doubled down the last year and got some stuff done. And I'm feeling good about it.
Wow, that's a power move, buying the podcast. Love that.
I didn't even know you could do that. I didn't know that was a thing that you could buy a podcast.
I mean, it's a whole other, depending on how far down the rabbit hole or gossipy you want to get, it didn't have to be bought necessarily. I mean, it's just sort of, anyway, I wanted the audience that I had built and I wanted to create my own brand. And that was sort of what ended up happening, was sort of a transfer of information. And, but yeah, it's really tough. I just knew that even though I have I have a modest, but a very real online community, which I'm again, very grateful for. But I just knew starting from scratch. It's so difficult. It's so difficult to catch people's attention, and to get people to just start something new, especially when there's so much out there. Like
Right.
the difference between podcasting, like starting a podcast even 5 years ago, 7 years ago versus now, it's a completely different world. And I just wasn't sure I wanted to start all over again. So I'm glad that I didn't have to ultimately.
Yeah. So I would, if you don't mind, I would love to take a step back, and would you mind kind of describing your journey a little bit? So you spent time in marketing. So again, in my role at the school that Erin and I represent, I talk to people all day long that are interested in becoming a health coach. They're curious about it, but what they're having a hard time really understanding is how they're going to get there. And most of them are coming from another job into this one. So there are some that are from the industry that are looking to either add this or make a pivot, but at least it's industry related. But more than half are coming from an entirely different industry, like marketing, sales, teachers, lawyers, salespeople, a lot of moms whose kids are finally going to school that are looking to do other things. So, and they're all like the vision of the journey is still very vague for them. Yeah. So I would love, if you don't mind, describing a little bit. So you were in marketing in kind of a corporate setting. Mm-hmm. What was kind of your first step? And how did you kind of grow and emerge into where you are now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a journey that is possibly very different for, different individuals. But I do think that some of the lessons I've learned can be helpful, like best practices for some people who are just like, I literally don't even know where to start. And some of these things are really practical. One being that I had a partner, my husband, who had a secure job that enabled me to be like, I'm going to leave this like pretty good job that I have in the middle of like an economic downturn at the time, because what was happening, it was around 2009 that I started making this jump. And like, people were like, are you sure you want to do that? And I was like, yep, I guess, but I did have a support system, and I think it's important not to downplay that, because making these transitions can take a while, and you need to have some security, right? So I had saved money also, which, is smart. And then I had the support system, and then I did make this transition from full-time corporate employee to working for myself full-time, probably over the course of, it took me maybe 5 or 6 years to do that. And so it started by literally doing research, making plans, writing things down on paper. What would this look like? What do I want to do? How much time do I have to allot to this? What are like my priorities? What would I love my work to look like? Because there is also the downside, and this does happen to people who want to do what they love for a living, and then when they get it, it's not what they expected, or, not everybody can or maybe should do the things that they love or their passion for a living. Sometimes that sours the experience for them, and only you individually know if that's going to be you or not, right? Mm-hmm. And so anyway, so I was kind of doing all of this sort of just soft kind of planning, feeling out, like talking to people, things here and there. But another thing that I did that I feel like a lot of people are hesitant about, and when I speak to other potential coaches or people who are looking to move into this world, it's that sort of paralysis by, perfection. Like, I'm not 100% ready. I don't have the time, like this is so familiar, right? But people just are very afraid to put themselves out there, even in a small way. And that's something that I always did, because I really just saw it as low risk. Like, I started in the journalism side of things. So I started pitching websites, magazines, contacts that I had made. Like, do you want me to write this? Can I write that? Can I do this? Can I do a blog post? Start your own blog, like start putting some content out there or some of your personality out there or some of the things that you're good at so that people can start to see it and you can start to sort of just build some of this. But people are just so afraid because they're like, well, but I don't have a website yet and I don't have an established company and I don't have testimonials or all of this stuff. And it's like, nobody does at the beginning. We just all have to start somewhere.
Right.
And it's so low risk when you think about it. If you take your ego out of it, and ego being, I'm not good enough, or this, I'm comparing myself to somebody else. If you take your ego out of it and just think like, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to do. I have to start somewhere. I think I have something to offer. I'm just going to put it out there and keep putting it out there. And not everyone's going to take it. It's not always going to work, but eventually it will. And then this one little thing turns into another thing and steamrolls, and that's what happens. So it's funny because it's a little bit of an aside, but I am doing this coaching program right now with a friend of mine for women. And one of the things we talk about is this, how your ego can set you back. And I think that there's this common misconception that an ego, when we think of ego, we think of like maybe more traditionally masculine ego, like macho or being cocky or being full of yourself or like thinking you're too good to learn, which is certainly your ego maybe telling you something that's BS, but your ego can also be the voice in your head telling you like, you're not ready, you're not good enough, you're not doing, everybody's looking at you, you look stupid, whatever. That's your ego telling you stuff that isn't helping you either, right? So I think that just paying attention to, and it's okay, we all have these thoughts, but pushing through that if you are clear ultimately on what you want to do. Don't listen to the guy that's telling you you can't or that you're never going to get there, you know, because that's what stops people before they even start. So anyway, I'm rambling already, but I think a couple practical things are, you know, obviously having enough sort of security and stability in your life that you can start to explore some of these things without being super stressed out about it. And then having a plan to maybe take it slow and move. Like, I don't generally recommend anybody kind of do the like diving in head first unless you have that setup available to you. Most people don't. You kind of do need to like make the transition more slowly. And then the starting slow, like just putting yourself out there over and over again, and creating opportunities for yourself, because that's literally how it started. I didn't have connections anywhere. I didn't have a background in athletics. I didn't have any like starting point that would have made it easy for me to jump into this. I just kind of kept putting myself out there until I started getting something back.
Okay. So I think there's so much value in everything you just shared. So many amazing little nuggets, little sound bites that I hope everybody jotted down. But here's how I interpreted it. So first of all, Laura and I completely agree with you. It doesn't have to be a leap into the unknown. I refer to it as like calculated risk, you know, like I'm a calculated risk taker. I think I'm kind of getting that vibe from you too, Ashleigh. It's like, you had some ducks in a row, you had some money put aside, you had a support network, you kind of made a smart step out of your career. You didn't just fly out of it and hope for the best, right? There was some calculated risk there, a sense of I'm going to use the word confidence. That's not necessarily the word I'm thinking of, although I think it probably works in this sense, like a confidence that it's going to be okay. Like Laura talks a lot about like, what's the worst case scenario? Well, you go back to your previous career. There's always something there to catch you. So the calculated risk, I think, is interesting. This idea that you can tiptoe out of whatever you're doing now. Doesn't need to be a leap. And then what I also picked up was this idea of a beginner's mind. You touched on this when you talked about when Paleo Magazine offered you the podcast, and your answer was, yes, I'll do it. I don't know how, but let's go. Right? A willingness to just step into things that you don't know how to do and figuring out how to do them. I actually think that's one of the great hurdles that new health coaches come up against. It's like, well, I don't know how to do this, so there's no point in starting or trying. So can you speak to that beginner's mind a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't necessarily know where it comes from. I guess it's funny because it's sort of related a little bit in my athletic career to the negative side of that coin, where I kind of felt like I didn't have an elite mindset. because I felt that I didn't have what it took mentally to be really good at any sport that I tried. And I'm a pretty athletic person. I've dabbled in a couple different things that I've really enjoyed. And I hit sort of a certain level of success. And I'm like, I'm good here. And I kind of don't go any further. And I always kind of was sort of self-deprecating, but I think there's some truth to it too, that I was just like, I just don't have what it takes to go further, because it does take this like all consuming, in many cases, obsessive mindset to be really good at a sport, but also, you know, to be a CEO sometimes, to, you know, lots of things in life, you kind of need to have this really intense laser focus that some people just don't have. And so I always kind of saw it as like a failing on my part, that I was like, man, if I was just a little bit more hardcore, like I could be really good at some of these things, you know, but you know, what are you going to do? So I kind of told myself, like, I'll just be like a jack of all trades instead, and be well-rounded, and be knowledgeable and good at enough things that I can make information and resources accessible to a lot of people. And this was, from a business perspective, kind of a sticky point for me for a couple of years, because I went through this period of like, but like, who am I really then? Like, if I'm not this girl, or I'm not the paleo person, or the strong whatever, like, what am I really? I'm just kind of another person out there that's like into fitness. Like, so is everybody else. What's the big deal? Like, what's my selling point, you know? And people are always telling you got to like find your niche or find your thing. And I'm like, could my niche be that I just am willing to experiment and try and learn and pass that learning on to other people and then move on? I don't know. It kind of worked a little bit, but I felt that there was like a plateau that I was hitting, where I just was like, I'm not reaching more people with this. Like, I've kind of, you know, I still think it's a really important skill to cultivate. I think that everyone can benefit from it. I don't care if you are like the most hyper specific coach in the world, or if you only focus on like this one tiny thing. Having this mentality of being willing to learn and start from the bottom and be a beginner and be taught by other people, and fail and maybe look silly. Like, I think everyone can benefit from that. I think that it's maybe problematic, and it's worth kind of doing a deeper dive on yourself if you are terrified of that. Because it's sort of like a mask we're putting on, right? Because we're all there. We're all like beginners who don't know what we're doing in some sense, but we kind of want to pretend that we're not. So, yeah. So, I mean, I think I've always been that way, and I'll continue to be that way. But I have, like, you know, when we talk about business stuff later, like I have kind of like niched down obviously on some things, and it's been successful for me. But I still am the first person to say that, you know, I'm here to learn just like everybody else is.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. You know, I think Erin I can totally relate to what you were saying about, God, if I was just able to break through this plateau, work a little bit harder, whatever. And I think after years of working my ever-loving ass off in an industry I didn't even really like, right? But I was driven to achieve something. For me, it was money. It was financial independence after my divorce, right? But I almost have an aversion to that now. Like, I don't ever want to have to work that hard and put myself through that kind of stress again. And I think at this point, I know, because my husband and I sat down and talked about it. I've spent a lot of time reflecting on, what do I really want? And how much money do I really need to make to be there? And for me, it's about, if I can support my family living a life of purpose and be able to protect my time so that I can do the things that I'm working so hard for, right? What's the point of working if you can't actually enjoy your life? So I completely hear you on kind of, you know, if I was willing to put myself through more of that, I could accomplish so much more. But do I really want to do that?
Yeah.
You know, I can totally relate to that. And I think Erin can too, to a certain degree. Yeah.
It's a smart thing to take stock of, really, because I mean, I think that that's something that we should all be doing maybe every couple of years in our life and in our career, because yeah, we do. There is sort of this mindset, and maybe it's very like North American, maybe not. That's just like, there is no end state. You should always be, of course, trying to be more successful and have more money. Like, why would you even question that? But we absolutely should be questioning that, because life is short, and I don't want to spend all of my fun years working hard till I die. And then what did I do it for? And so there's some really there's some wisdom there. And I think it's worth checking in on. And I've been kind of trying to do that. I'm at a phase right now where to be honest with you, one of my challenges is protecting my time. And I am still working on it, because I feel like I'm in a growth phase. Like I told you guys, like this year was very much like the year of me and growing my brand instead of maybe helping other people grow theirs. And I'm proud of that. But now that it's like, I'm responsible completely for the success or failure of what happens, for how much money I make, for how well I do. I'm like, but how can I turn away from this? How could I take a break? Will it work? You know? So I'm still kind of trying to navigate that a little bit. Any advice you guys have would be great. But I'm still working on it, but I'm aware of it at least. So that's the first step.
Yes, that is important. Yes.
Yeah.
You're naming and shaming it. I think it's amazing, like reframe alert, that you took this past year to focus on your brand. I've got all this time. I can't go anywhere. I can't see anybody. I'm going to write. I'm going to create. I'm going to double down on like really solidifying my brand. And it's sort of like, what a gift this year was. We didn't have very many distractions sort of stealing our mental energy. So I appreciate that. I'm going to use an old timey word, but gumption. I'm getting a gumption vibe from you. It's like, I'm not the best at everything, but I'm pretty good at a lot of things. I've got this gift of time right now because the world's shut down, so I'm going to use it. I think there's a lot of inherent qualities that you have that probably poised you to probably be successful. But my question for you is, can you speak to a time when you surprised yourself, where you learned to do something or took something on that you really had no hot clue how to do, or and you just said, what the hell, I'll try it. I'm just going to go for it. And you really surprised yourself in like really succeeding.
It's a good question. I like the gumption word too. I'm going to use that. I mean, probably the one that comes to mind right now is this project that I had this year writing my book, because it's a very hyper-specific book. It's about organ meats, which is about as niche as it gets. It's about the background, the history, the health benefits of eating truly nose to tail. When people think nose to tail, they're like, oh, I don't know, like from
noses and tails.
Yeah, but like really, truly, this is a whole other rabbit hole we could go down, but it's a topic that I felt passionate about for a while. It's a topic that I was personally exploring for a while. And I had this just sort of notion, it just kind of came out of, I guess it's the gumption, because I went to an expo and I was talking to some friends, some colleagues, and I felt like everybody was writing a cookbook. And it's not that I wanted to like jump on a bandwagon. It was almost more of and like, forgive me, but like, well, if all you guys can do it, like I can do it, like let's I don't know. That's kind of how I felt about it. And I thought, like, this is really specific. Maybe only 5 people will buy it, but those 5 people are going to be real into it. And so I started kind of having this idea in my head, and it solidified really quickly. And it was one of those things where this is another piece of advice I'd give to people who are looking to start a project that seems crazy, is if you do it anyway, if no one will see it and you don't make any money, then you've got a good idea, and like move forward with it. Because I was 100% like, I'll just publish this myself on Amazon. I'll figure that out. I'll make my friends buy it, like whatever, I'm going to do it. And I had that conviction, so that when I was able to speak to a publisher, they were like, oh yeah, this woman like is very into this. She's like pretty like clear on what she wants, and we're seeing a niche and like whatever. And it really moved quite quickly. But so I wrote a book in about 10 months, and largely by myself, sitting in my pandemic cave. And I was experimenting with recipes. I'm not a recipe developer. I have no background in being a chef other than just feeding myself as an adult. And so I had to do a lot of research. I had to do a lot of recipe development, a lot of experimentation, and also experimentation with ingredients and foods that are not common, not familiar. I didn't have a lot of resources or support because like I was creating the resources and support, like this stuff doesn't exist.
Right.
So it was pretty intimidating because it's like, okay, so I'm going to do this first book. I've actually got a publisher behind me. So like, this is gonna be a real thing. Like I don't want to screw it up. I've never done anything like this before. Most people have never seen anything like this before.
Right.
And so I don't ever remember really just being intimidated, just more being like, I really gotta put all of my attention and effort into it. And I worked really, really hard on it. And it was, of course, I mean, it got done and I felt so good when it was done. And when people were giving me feedback, like, this is helping me. This is like opening my mind. I tried something and I liked it. These pictures are good. Cause do you know how hard it is to take attractive food pictures of organ meats, guys? Okay. This is like next level stuff. So, I just felt so good. And I felt so like validated in my work. And I remember, I'm not like a overly emotional person, but I was traveling. And when I got home, the first copies of like the author copies of my book came in. And I remember opening the box and just bursting out crying because, and I didn't expect it. I didn't know how I was going to react, but it was really seeing like a manifestation of something that was like just a twinkle in my brain a year before. And I wasn't able to have a book launch. I wasn't really able to like share it with people. I was doing that on social media, but it was such a sort of closed experience. And then to see it be this real thing that was going to go out to people and they were going to enjoy it and like it and share it, which they did. It was like the most incredible thing ever. And yeah, I don't regret 1 second of edits or throwing things around my office for 10 months because it was so fun.
Amazing.
Wow. I love that.
Right.
And it is super nichey, but I got to tell you, I can't imagine there's a whole lot of cookbooks that are devoted to that type of food. Right. And so for folks, and look, in this ancestral health realm is growing by leaps and bounds. More and more people are catching on to more of like an animal-based diet, right? And what a phenomenal resource.
Yes.
Because, what a phenomenal resource. I have to just go by it. What's the name of the book?
It's called, if I was up in my office, I've got the marketing down there. I've got it in the background, but it's called It Takes Guts.
I like it.
It takes guts to try something new and something that people tell you is gross and weird. I mean, this was my experience for years when I was experimenting with organ meats. I'd post about stuff in my stories on Instagram and people are just sending me barf emojis and
right.
I'm like, and this is a community that is largely, health focused and paleo, and they're still telling me I'm a crazy weirdo. And I'm like, this is the kind of stuff we need to unpack, from an ancestral health perspective, but also just from a, I don't know, like a common sense perspective. Like, it's so silly that so many of us who are already on board with the health benefits of animal products to think of, eating a part of an animal as being completely acceptable and proper, and a slightly different part of that exact same animal as being extreme and bizarre and nightmarish. It really is something to unpack, and that's what we talk about. That's what I talk about in the book. And I think one of the reasons why it is a good resource, because I'll be clear, there are other organ meat books out there, not a lot, but most of them are from like classically trained French chefs or people who there's no warm up, there's no hand holding. You just open the book and they're like, go get some, kidney and like, let's do this 20 steps, whereas my book is like, okay, here's what organ meats are.
Yeah.
And here's how traditionally they've been used. And here's how you can source them. Here's how you can make friends with your local butcher and ask them questions. And here's some ways you can hide organ meat in the food you're already eating, to get used to it. And, there's just more of a conversation, and more sort of, gradual, easy, a little bit of hand holding, which is what I needed too. So,
yeah. I actually think that I kind of put this in the category of skills. It's more skills than recipes. So a lot of times clients will say, "Ooh, can you give me some recipes? I'm running out of food ideas." But what they really mean is, I don't know how to prepare other foods. I literally don't know how long to cook chicken in the oven. And it's not, they don't need recipes from some amazing recipe cookbook. They just need to understand the basics, really.
Yes.
So I think from an end user perspective, the cooking skills, the basic skills market is ripe for the picking. So I love that you jumped into it. And then as you were telling the story about creating this book idea, like, to me, it was just like, this is a genius idea. Holy moly. Because I'm one of those ancestral health people, paleo, like hardcore for 12 years, but how much liver have I eaten in that time? 0. But I was thinking about Seth Godin's approach of the smallest viable audience. So it's like, if you have a really good idea that for you it was a hell yes, like you had this hell yes energy, I'm doing this, I'm pitching it to the publisher, I got this conviction, it was such a hell yes for you. And it's like, it's so specific, but that specificity is actually a really important marketable piece, because you get this small 1% of the population that's really geeking out on how to make organ meats work for them. And they're your raving fans. Like, that's what you actually want when you're making anything, is that small and viable audience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, that again, like, that was another thing that really hugely changed my trajectory, because without, it's hard to not sound a little bit like salesy or tacky when you talk about stuff like this. But look, we're all in the coaching business and the entrepreneurial business, and this stuff is a reality that you do have to figure out how to communicate who you are and what you do and what your value is to the world if you're trying to get people to pay you for services, right? And like I said, one of my challenges before was being this, woman of many hats. I'm like, but how do I tell that to people in a compelling way? And what's going to make me different or unique that they're going to want to come to me for information or help? And so I'm not saying that I'm now like kind of just the organ meat lady, but I kind of, to some people, am the organ meat lady, and I'm sort of okay with that. And I learned also through this process that there's an audience for everything, right? And that the audience, it is absolutely niche, but there are also people coming out of the woodwork that I never would have expected, because like you said, ancestral health, obviously they're going to be relatively open to this. The kind of carnivore meat-based community that's growing is certainly into it. But I never even really thought, until I started getting into the book, like hunters. There's a lot of hunters. You don't need to convince them that heart and liver is beneficial and to not waste the animal and all of these things. They're already on board. And then the idea too, that I got for every barf emoji that I got on Instagram, I got people from, Mexico or, Africa or Asia. They're like, yeah, what's the big deal? Like, I eat this stuff all the time. And it's a reminder too, that it's really kind of only like modern North American culture that thinks this is weird. And throughout the history of humanity, before we had Google or like an influencer on Instagram to tell us what to eat, people knew what to eat, and it was organ meats, honestly. So yeah, I mean, it's been cool in that way too, because I'm like, oh man, I do have this cool, weird little group of people who are on board with this. I don't have to convince them. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that offal, as it's called, or organ meats, were a part of every day. Brad and I just got into watching Downton Abbey, and I feel them referencing like kidney pie all the time. This is stuff that not that long ago was just delicious and part of it every day. And Erin, I love your comment about skills. I mean, most people don't know how to cook a steak properly, let alone liver, heart, kidney, anything. I don't know how many times people have been like, I don't make fish because I don't know how to cook it. I'm like, what do you mean? How do you, but they don't. And so the fact that this is not just a book full of a bunch of different recipes with 85 ingredients per recipe, it's literally educational. Where do I start? How do I find it? So fantastic. And for people listening, if you've got an idea, an inkling of an idea, and you think it's awesome, but those around you are telling you you're wacko, I think you just need to find a different tribe maybe, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've always been like with food and working out and stuff like again, I don't know, maybe it's because I had like a bunch of siblings or I had like a very strong-minded mother. I really can't tell you why, but that kind of stuff, like people telling me that I was weird or crazy, like literally never bothered me. If anything, it just made me be like, whatever, I'm going to prove you wrong. Like people were always telling me I was weird because I liked, building muscle. Like it's not like I'm, overly old. I'm in my mid 30s, but like when I was 16 and I was in the gym, I was doing bicep curls and that wasn't super normal even that long ago. The culture, the gym culture has changed so much, but the fact that I liked watching like, World's Strongest Man instead of, I don't know, Backstreet Boys or something. Like whatever I was into it. And I knew that there were other people that were into it. I knew there was nothing wrong with having the passions that I had. And yeah, if you feel strongly about something and you care about it and it lights you up, go for it, because there will be other people who will feel the same way. Yeah. 100%.
Actually, and when you were talking about how you had this niche idea, and it but actually ended up speaking to different audiences, that's actually really important to kind of hook into. And I've shared this anecdote before of a girl that I know who's a coach, and she's a personal trainer, and she's a very high level athlete. She competes on the international stage. And so as a personal trainer, she specifically works with high level, basically Olympic caliber athletes. And so she puts this messaging out like, I'm the coach, the trainer for Olympic caliber athletes. And she gets a lot of Olympic caliber athletes into her practice, but she also gets a lot of really rich people who aren't athletes, but have money to spend on the coach for Olympic athletes. So she speaks specifically in her marketing efforts to this one thing that she does, but it attracts different audiences. And this is what we talk about in marketing, the benefit of niching, which makes a lot of people cringe because they're like, but I want to help everybody. I want to do everything. It's like, totally. But when you're putting a message out, it's more impactful if it's a very specific message. Many people might resonate with it, but if you can get that message dialed right in tight, that's why we push. That's why everybody in the educational space and health coaching pushes niching. What do you think about that? What is your thought on niching?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do think it's crucial. I think, and it goes back to sort of how you are in life too. It's like if you try to please everybody, you're not pleasing anybody, right? And it is difficult to do, but I think another thing that I like to tell people who are going through this process or looking for advice is that nothing is set in stone. I just feel like, again, there's so little like context or room for evolution when it comes to stuff like this, that people feel like they have to have all the answers and have it perfect. And if they change, it's a failure. And I just want people to be a little easier on themselves and also a little bit more in touch with reality that nobody has it all together and nobody does everything perfect from the get-go. And it's the people who are maybe more willing to be adaptable or flexible or switch their route or change things up that end up ultimately successful, because they're just sort of willing to weather the storms that happen instead of being paralyzed by the fear of not being perfect. And this goes from being a coach and also being coached, because in my experience with clients, one of the biggest issues is that people, like, they latch on to something, and then when it doesn't work anymore, or if it doesn't ever work, it's like they double down on it harder rather than exploring maybe why it didn't work or how to make adjustments. And it's like, that's all a coach is doing for you. Like if you keto, for example, I use this example all the time because I know a lot of women who have had positive experiences with keto. Maybe they had a lot of body fat to lose or something, and they kind of make the switch to really low carb and they lose a lot of fat. And then at a certain point, they're plateauing and they don't feel good anymore, or maybe they're gaining weight again, or maybe their hormones are starting to be out of whack. And it's like, they take it like personally, like they've screwed up now. And, it's usually never the case. It's that your body used a tool and it's not the ideal tool anymore. And now you switch it up and you use a different tool. It's not a failure. It's just you changing. But if you identify so strongly with I don't know, a type of eating or a group of people who do a certain thing. And then if it doesn't work for you anymore, you feel like you're a failure. And I really want people to work on that. It's the mental side of it really too, because it's just so, it breaks my heart when people who care so much and work so hard and are investing in themselves, but they won't give themselves the same kind of grace that they'd give a coach who, if I was their coach, I'd be like, well, kind of looks like keto's not working for you anymore. Maybe let's throw in some carbs around your workouts and see what happens. I mean, maybe they tell me like, I don't want to do that, I'm uncomfortable, but they wouldn't like automatically be like, well, you suck and you gave me something that doesn't work anymore. They'd be like, okay, you're giving me changes because you're the expert and you know what to do, but they don't give themselves that same kind of,
Absolutely.
respect, right?
100%.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess it would just be to go back to the question, like, yes, niching is important. And I even still have some work to do with that too, because I do kind of know who my clients are. It's not like super, super niched or set in stone, but like generally speaking, I can do some work on that too. But I think that being willing to kind of adjust as you go, which I've done, and continue to kind of make changes based on what you're learning, what you're interested in, the feedback that you're getting from clients about what they need. I think that stuff's important.
Yeah.
Right.
Two of my favorite sound bites that kind of summarize what I think you shared is, first of all, failure is feedback. And that goes for, like, we work that with our clients all the time. To your point, the client comes to you and says, I like this part of the program. This part's not working for me. It's like, great, that's amazing information. Let's take another step with that information in mind. And the other soundbite that popped in my head is, it's not a problem, it's a puzzle. It's something that's solvable. And so this, to me, goes back to beginner's mind. It's like, you have to be willing to fall on your face a little bit, feel stupid, make a mistake, figure it out, pivot. Pivot is a big word. I was thinking about Mark Sisson, who has had to pivot his business, and it really paid off for him, This is the thing is that you said this verbatim, and I want coaches to hear it, is like, we expect this from our clients. We expect our clients are going to be open to pivoting and renegotiating and readjusting. But why don't we do that? Where is that logjam? I think that was just important.
Right. I think a lot of people forget that what may have worked to get you here might not be what works to get you someplace else. Hello, right? Yes. You want to go someplace else. You might need an entirely different vehicle. Perhaps you just need a new path. Maybe you need a new game plan. Your time horizon changes. All of this stuff changes. And we see it in our community a lot where, this will come up. How about it, Erin? Where, I am working with this client for X amount of time. Their eating is, whatever, paleo, primal, whatever program they have, but they haven't lost weight. Okay, what are we doing wrong? And they kind of pose it to the group. And it's, it's like when people say, oh, I eat clean. Why can't I lose weight? Like, what does that even mean? Right? We have to know so much more that just a dietary philosophy. For some people, it's magic, right? We've seen that. But for other people, again, it's taking a closer look at what did work, what didn't work. They feel better. This is another thing that we hear. They feel better, they're sleeping better, blah, 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 but they're not losing weight. Okay, well, the mechanism required to actually lose fat and lose weight is a different mechanism than just lowering inflammation or being able to sleep better and all these things. So this is where it comes down to just, gosh, you know what? Ask more questions and get more specific and be willing to get out of your own head and your own dogma with a beginner's mind, to use Erin's word. What don't I know that I need to learn, and I need to help my client learn for themselves.
One thing that I wanted to share with you ladies, because I think you guys would be interested, but also probably your listeners, but one podcast that I did on my show, Muscle Maven Radio, recently, shameless plug, but here you go. It's useful. I reached out to my community and I asked two separate questions. I asked coaches, because I have a lot of people in my community who are coaches. I asked coaches what they found to be the biggest challenges or obstacles in the coach-client relationship. And then I asked clients the same question. And so a ton of stuff came back, of course, that was all sort of finger pointing at the others, right? But it was stuff like, I'm not getting like personalized attention or feedback, like coaches or clients are saying that, or, I paid all this money and I'm not getting what I want out of it. And like some pretty common themes were emerging. And then clients saying like the opposite side of that coin, which was like, they just expect me to like fix all of their problems when it's them that has to do the work. I provide the support and the resources, or, just so all of this stuff. But what I tried to do in the podcast was kind of like condense, because I've been a coach and I've been coached. So again, not necessarily an expert, but I've like been around the block with this stuff a couple times. And I felt like because I was on both sides, I was able to kind of maybe tell both sides some like hard truths that they didn't necessarily want to hear. But it kind of, it crystallized in this like communication and clear expectations as being two sort of major pillars that are important for any relationship. Like, I was saying it, I don't know if it was kind of controversial, because I'm like, it's the same as like a romantic relationship, a friend relationship, a family relationship. You need to communicate properly. You cannot expect people to guess what you want or your feelings. And just because you see somebody who looks good on the internet, and because they are expensive, so you think that they must be a big deal coach, that they should just know all the answers and have all of your answers, and that you shouldn't tell them what you need, what you require, what you expect, what you're looking for, and be really, really clear and upfront, and continue to be clear and be honest, and, from the coach's perspective, it's kind of the same thing. Like, you need to be able to be willing to like take the time and ask questions and dive deeper and like really be there for the client, and, be honest about what your abilities are and where your blind spots are and all of these things. But it just really seemed, it was kind of interesting that like, it ultimately boiled down to, it wasn't something more topical, like, oh, clients just aren't willing to do the work, or coaches are just lazy these days and they just want to put out a PDF. It's like, people need to be heard and understood, but they also need to give as much as they're like getting back. Like, I think that there was just a lot of like putting the responsibility on not you in the interaction. And I just thought it was really, really fascinating. And ultimately, I mean, you guys tell me if you disagree, but I kind of feel like ultimately the onus is a little bit more heavily weighed on the client, because the client is the one doing the research, seeking out the coach, paying the money, making the investment. And not to say that you can't sometimes be duped and like think you have this great coach and work really hard and they just either suck or they aren't for you, which are two possible, outcomes. It's not to say that, again, it's you're completely on your own. And if it's a failure, it's 100% your fault. But I think that the onus is on the client to really do the proper research, to really like be sure that you're ready, to have really clearly articulated goals and be willing to articulate those to the coach. Because ultimately it's your desires and your challenges that you're putting out there to try to change. And so, the responsibility is kind of on you to get it going.
So we teach an advanced coaching course, our level 2 course, which satisfies the educational requirements to become a board certified health coach. It's a new program that we've built in the last year. And that is the message straight out the gate on day one. The client is leading this relationship. The client is in the driver's seat. To go back to your point on communication, we teach coaches how to ask powerful questions, how to listen actively, how to tease out from the client what maybe they're unwilling to just openly share.
Right.
But the client is the leader of the relationship. And that's a paradigm shift for a lot of coaches, I think, who maybe thought they were getting into a teacher-student paradigm. Like, I'm the boss, I have all the knowledge, I'm going to teach it to this client. It's a major shift in energy, but that unblocks the communication. In your research, communication was the block for both coach and client. And the way to solve it is to break down this teacher-student paradigm, this, boss subordinate paradigm, and then just like lead the client from beside them, kind of thing.
That's I think that's really hard for coaches in particular who feel so they're being paid, and we have spent decades making the assumption that the reason you pay anyone is because they give you something of value, right? And so I think we kind of really need to reframe what we're paid for, right? Like, I'm sorry, but paying me for me, you paying me to give you knowledge is only, that's like such a small part of the relationship. What I try to explain to people is I'm not in the diet or nutrition business. I'm in the change business. And my client has to be willing to make change if they want to see change. They have to actively be willing to do something different. Because if what they want is for me to provide a magic pill that makes it easy and they don't have to do the work, we're not going to get anywhere. And communication is key. And by the way, what you found in this industry, I think is the same across any industry. I came from the finance world. Mm-hmm. The exact same thing happened when they did research studies on how investors choose financial advisors and stay with financial advisors. The number one reason why someone would refer a financial advisor or stay with one is because my advisor understands me. And my advisor listens to me. Not they gave me the best investment advice, not they make the most money for me, none of that stuff. Not, hey, he's always up at 10 o'clock at night to answer. No, it was that my advisor understood me and listened to me. And it is 100% the same here, probably even more so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
Communication is so important, and setting expectations and making sure your clients know what it is you do and what you don't do. It's so important in that initial conversation. But I don't know about you three ladies, but I will fully admit I did it wrong in the beginning. That was not how I framed what it was I was doing. I didn't know any better. I mean, this was 10 years ago. I just wanted to help.
I feel like one of the kind of friction points for a lot of coaches, both beginner and not, and it's something that I'm focusing on in this other course that I'm doing with my friend that I mentioned, is it relates to this sort of like, I'm the boss, you're the person learning from me thing, where we feel naively as coaches that if we give people good enough information, they'll just be able to take it and run with it, and they're sorted out now forever. The end. Like, we think we're all sorted out forever. Like, it's right. Not a thing. But anyway, so one of the like really big focuses that I've been trying to work on in this program that I'm doing is how to, and not because it's so much pressure too, to like change the person so that they don't need you anymore. And so that you feel like they're good. They can just go on and you don't have to worry about them, and they're going to be sorted, and they're not going to feel lost or afraid ever again. They're just going to know what to do. But there is an element of like preparing a client to continue on after the relationship is over, because any good coach doesn't want to work with somebody forever. That's not really a good, right. That's not good feedback for me. If you're still working with me, whatever, I want you to learn some things and move on and not need me anymore. So it's a big part of that in the community that I'm in, and I do work mostly with women, is sort of the empowerment part of it, the confidence part of it we talked about earlier, the maybe I'll credit you, Erin, gumption part of it, where it's not that you have to know all the answers. It's not that I had to know all the answers and I gave them all to you. It's just having the tools and the trust in yourself to know that you can figure it out, or that you have the resources to figure it out. And that's huge, because I really feel like probably legit 80% of the questions I get from women are not, I don't know how to do this. I know nothing about this. How do I eat? How do I work out? What's a macro? None of that stuff. It's, I feel like I want to do this. Can I do that? Mm-hmm. Right. Or like, this is changing and I sort of feel like this isn't working anymore and I kind of want to change it. Like, what do you think? Can I do that? Can I change it? They're asking me permission to do the things that they already know. Right. And so it's hard for me as somebody who, I don't know, I guess a little more high energy, to not be like, I just want to shake you. Be like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Like, do it. Just do it. Because what's the worst that could happen is you do it. And like you said, you're kind of right back where you started because it didn't work. Okay, great. That's what would have happened if I had given you that advice. It wouldn't have worked, and we would pivot and we would move on. So it's this like empowerment, like what to do next, how to take the tools instead of, because it's a lot easier. And I've learned from my background of like, I've done competitive bodybuilding. I've done, stuff where I've had to be super, super strict and follow really strict rules. And I find that much easier than trying to figure out like my ideal lifestyle for health and wellness and vitality. You know what I mean? Like, it's very easy to actually follow somebody's rules once you've decided you want to. But figuring out how to, live your best life in a sustainable, balanced, happy way, that's a lot more work. That's a lot harder for people to figure out. So that's something that I'm like really kind of working on. And I think kind of really aware of these days with the work that I'm doing, because I just want people, and maybe it goes back to too, what you guys were saying about like having balance and like understanding of your time and boundaries and like, what are you doing this for? I don't want to have to, be somebody's resource all the time. And I don't want them to have to feel like I have to be there for them all the time. I want them to be able to go and enjoy their life and make their own decisions. So that's something I'm working on a lot right now. And it's tough.
This is so important. I'm so excited that you brought this up. This is such an important topic, because what you're describing is self-efficacy. Client self-efficacy is the ultimate outcome of a coaching relationship. And here's the thing, is though clients don't necessarily know that, a client will say to you, I need someone to hold me accountable, or I need someone to be accountable to, but that's not really what they mean or need, because they need to be accountable to themselves, but they just don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Efficacy is this empowerment or this autonomy that we're talking about. The client knows how to solve their own problems. Eventually, we help them to believe that they have the tools to succeed on their own. That is the absolute 100% desired outcome of any coaching relationship. And you can't do that by being the boss. It doesn't work if you're playing that boss role. Yeah. Super important.
So what are some suggestions or thoughts you have to make this a priority when there is a delicate balance between they've hired you because they believe you have special knowledge and skills. So there is a little bit, I don't want to even say it's like an imbalance, but like they've picked you for a reason, right? And also at the very beginning, when people are just like, okay, well, you're like trying to, empower me and all that stuff. And that's great. But I also just want you to like help me like lose some weight and like figure this out. So how do you do that? How do you do both at the same time?
I think that's such an important question too, because, for example, if you've ever listened to the motivational interviewing audiobook, which I listen to twice a year, because it's anybody who's a coach should probably just put that in their earbuds and like listen to it on their walks, because it's really, really powerful. Motivational interviewing is very powerful. And in some coaching circles, you'd be led to believe that all you have to do is ask questions. And then when your client asks a question, you ask a question back, and it all comes out in the wash. And even in this textbook, when you listen to it, these conversations are very strange. It's like, I don't think conversations really go like that. Right. I always tell our students in our level 2 course, it's like, yes, I want you to ask powerful questions, evocative questions, active listening, all of that motivational interviewing stuff. And at some point, you're going to need to show up with a solution. At some point, you're going to show up with an answer to a question. Don't just ask a question back when your client asks you something. Have an answer. So I think this comes down to every coach has their signature methodology, the way they help people. So this is how I help people, right? We all have our kind of unique approach. And so there is an element of education. I think that I think that's a bit of a misstep that I'm seeing in the coaching education space, right? Is that we're forgetting that at some point the client wants to learn from us, and we are in an educational role. So you use the word balance, and to me, it's a balance between motivational interviewing and also having knowledge in a certain area and a signature methodology that you deliver.
Right. I think it's also about delivering the right piece of information to that person at the right time when it's relevant for them to use it. Because in the beginning, when I first started coaching, it was, here's how it works. Go and be successful. We would talk about it, but inevitably 90% of what I talked about in one session was completely forgotten by the second one. They were able to actually take home 10%. Right. Yeah. Versus if you're having a conversation and you're talking about priorities, you're talking about values, you're talking about goals, and it's really up to the client to really pinpoint where they want to start first, and working with them to help them understand or digging from them what it is they think they need to be successful in this piece of the puzzle right now. And why is that piece the most important for you? And would it be helpful where you can provide them with a piece of information for them to be successful in that piece of the puzzle for you? as you continue to build on it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and moving forward, because I don't know how many times I see it with every single, I saw it with every single client early on, how much of what I taught them was not absorbed, was not used, their eyeballs glaze over, they stop listening. So it's got to be the right information at the right time and in context with what's relevant in that conversation and what they're doing. That's when it's the most impactful. They're asking for it. This is the way I handle my children. If they're asking me a question, I answer the question, but I want to know why they're asking me that question. And I start with a basic answer. If they want to know more, they will ask me another question. You don't have to wow them with how the Krebs cycle works, right? They need like a basic answer that they can absorb and understand, because the minute you try to explain something that is kind of out of their just sort of realm right now, their mind isn't, you know, they don't know enough to grasp that, they lose confidence.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a really, really good point. It's something I almost feel like it comes with a little bit of like experience and confidence as a coach too, because I had the exact same, issue. Well, I still do. I have to fight against it, where I want to give so much right away, because that's what they think they want too. They want all the information. They want all the, you know, charts and diagrams and this and that to look at. And I'm going to give you this whole plan and tell you to do all these things, which is basically never the right approach for getting people to start like enacting like sustainable behavior change. But you want to wow them, and you want to feel like they got their money's worth, and you want to feel like you are this authority that has the answers to instill confidence in them. And it's been like a real process for me to slow that down. And it's been really rewarding when it works. And when I have clients come back to me and say like, you know, this moved a lot slower than I wanted it to, but guess what? Like I'm actually listening now, and I'm actually doing these things, and it feels different than all those other times that someone told me, you're going to lose 20 pounds in 3 weeks, and here's how you do it. Here's a PDF, like, you know? So it's tough. I mean, coaching is no joke. There's so much psychology at play, both for the client and the coach. It's very cool. I mean, it's cool to kind of nerd out on that stuff too.
It's so cool. It's so much cooler than like dispensing meal plans and fitness programs. Like, it's so much cooler to get into that paradigm.
Yeah.
So that episode, I looked at it while you were talking. So that's your March 30th episode. So I've got that one downloaded. So anybody who's looking for that one, Muscle Maven Radio, it's the March 30th episode. It's called What's Wrong with Coaching and How We Can Fix It.
No big deal. Strong title.
Can't wait to dive into that.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. You know, what's interesting is I was having a conversation with someone looking to enroll in a course. So this was one of her first conversations with somebody, and I had asked her if she'd ever worked with a coach before, and what did she think? And she did. She said, as a matter of fact, it was offered through her insurance company. We're starting to see more and more of this happening. And she said, but the problem is I would get on the phone with this person for a half an hour once a month. And she's like, I just feel like all she did was ask me questions. And when I asked a question, she asked me more questions. I didn't feel I ever got anywhere with her. Okay. So, but the thing is there's a lot of programs out there that's all they're ever teaching. And I think a lot of times coaches fall back on that because no one taught them how the body actually works. So I think to a certain degree, you need to have a working knowledge of the biology and the psychology and how these work together. But at the end of the day, the success is going to come from the psychological part of this, right? And bringing in the biology at the right time. And I can't wait to listen to that particular episode, because I think there's a lot that, I think the reason we can even identify that there's something wrong or what's going wrong in the coaching industry is because we're starting to see this. We're seeing these aha moments. So things are changing, and I just love it.
And I think, I mean, you guys tell me if you're seeing this, but like, I feel like coaching as a service has only grown since the pandemic started. People are, you know, becoming maybe more aware or reflective of what they want, their health challenges, things that aren't working anymore. Maybe they have more time to focus on their own health or their own goals in a way that they were putting off before because they were busy or distracted by other things. I do think that it is sort of, in some ways, considered maybe like a luxury service, certainly, but one that will kind of like always have an audience because people always are looking for this kind of guidance, right? So it's worth having these kinds of conversations now, because if you do want to get into this line of work, I mean, it's not the worst time to get into it, right? I mean, it's important and people need it.
Yeah.
Great time.
Honestly, the rise of coaching in the last year is wild. And I even think of people that I follow on social media who did other things, and now they're calling themselves coaches. They're business coaches, or they're relationship coaches, or confidence coaches, or empowerment coaches, or health coaches. And I was thinking to myself, like, at this rate, eventually we're all going to be coaches. But then I was like, that's actually kind of cool. Like,
Right.
There's actually kind of an interesting support network that we're building. We're all just going to be coaching each other. And I like this sort of community of peers is how I think I see coaching evolving as less of a mentor role and more of like a peership kind of thing. And I actually think that's really powerful to imagine.
Yeah, I actually love that. I mean, I just had literally an exchange of services with a girlfriend a couple months ago. She's a business coach, and she's like, I'm working so hard on my business and other people's business, and my health is just like tanked. And I was like, oh, well, that's interesting, because I'm working on expanding my business and my whole thing is health. So, hey, you want to make this happen? And instead of, exchanging money, we exchanged knowledge and support, and we had calls with each other and worked out some things. And it was really cool. And I was like, yeah, like this is actually like a kind of a cool outcome to this, is that we're all figuring out our niche, figuring out how we can help each other, and making it happen, maybe more than we would have before the pandemic, I think.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. It's growing. And I, not only is it growing, but I also think it's becoming a far more valued portion of, particularly in health. We're seeing it recognized in areas where it was sort of poo-pooed or eyes rolled or whatever. We're really starting to see a true acknowledgement of the benefit that we do and the role that we play here. So
yeah, it's
only going to get better. So,
I mean, you could look at it either like pessimistically or optimistically, that like we are in a time in life where we need so much help just to be healthy,
right.
You know what I mean? But like, you could also look at it like in a good way, where we have more resources and more support, and we also care about it more, instead of just like quietly, like, shoving our sickness or our unhappiness like under the rug forever, which I'm sure is what probably was happening in some generations. But it's also kind of an interesting look at the modern world that we're living in, that like, it isn't natural. It doesn't come naturally to have balance and health and be able to make good decisions all the time. You know what I mean? It's something that we all actually do need help with.
Yeah.
But I guess, accepting that as a reality is better than pretending that it's not, and that it is easy, and that, anyone can do it, because that's not the case.
I think too that the health consumer is evolving. And what I'm hearing when I get on discovery calls with prospective clients is they're like, enough is enough. I want to figure this out for myself. Let's go. Like, the health consumer's fed up with spinning their wheels. And that's exactly where a coach leaps in to save the day.
Yep.
Absolutely. Enough is enough. I love that.
Yep.
It's so true. Awesome. Ashleigh, this was so fun. I could
thank you,
kind of
ladies.
like keep talking all day long. To be
I told you at the beginning that the three of us would not have any issues.
Absolutely. We could keep going. Okay, we have your podcast, Muscle Maven podcast, right? What
Muscle
else?
Maven Radio. Yep.
Muscle Maven Radio. Absolutely.
Yep.
And then you've got your book, It Takes Guts. Where can people find that?
Yeah, so you can find it anywhere. I mean, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you buy books, it's there. And I am working on a second book that's going to be out. I would guess maybe like spring of 2022. That sounds like a long way away, but it's going to be another high protein book, less organ meat, so a little bit more mainstream, but it's going to be more about, again, the sort of the educational component around, like, basically my goal is that I want this book, which is high protein, high animal protein, whole food recipes, to be in the health food section of Barnes and Noble with all those vegan cookbooks.
Yeah.
That's what I want. If I can get that, that is the success, because it's still overly maligned in the mainstream conversation that animal protein is something that you always have to minimize, restrict. It's only good in small doses. And especially for women, we are marketed to so aggressively that it's the more moral choice and the healthier choice and the lighter choice for women to eat plant-based. And I want to offer another option. So that's another thing I'm working on. That's coming out in 2022. And you can find out all this, any information about me on my website. It's just my name, AshleighVanHouten.com. My programs are there, consulting information, all of that stuff is there. And then you can also say hi to me on Instagram, and my handle is the Muscle Maven.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been so great.
Thank you for having me.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.
Well, if you've been listening at Health Coach Radio, you'll know that we're all about raising the voices of practicing health, fitness, and nutrition coaches, but most importantly, helping to further legitimize this exploding industry. Erin and I have disclosed often that we're on the faculty of the Primal Health Coach Institute, founded by none other than the health and wellness legend, Mark Sisson. And we've interviewed dozens of guests from just about every different health coaching program you can think of, and who practice in just about any conceivable way you can think of. But our allegiance is to the health coaching industry in its totality, first and foremost. It's our desire to continuously and unapologetically lift and promote this industry that nudged us to create this podcast for you in the first place. It's this same yearning that encouraged us to take the educational offering at our health coaching school to the next level. We are so proud to offer the Primal Health Coach Level 2 certification course, which, when combined with our primary course, the Primal Health Coach certification course, not only satisfies the educational requirements to sit for the board exam, but is specifically designed to teach advanced coaching mastery. You will work closely with a small class of peers through this 12-week, very intensive, live online classroom experience to learn how to execute a coaching relationship that is truly transformational. You'll learn and practice how to ask powerful questions, what it means to hold space for your clients, but most importantly, how to actually do it. You'll learn about the craft of motivational interviewing and the nuances of habit change, goal setting, and accountability, and how to nurture your client's own inner knowing, their intuition, and their own self-efficacy, so that they will graduate from your care a truly transformed person. You want a big, successful, powerful coaching practice. And maybe you're devouring our episodes looking for the silver bullet that's going to launch your business into the upper echelons. We've said it a million times and we'll say it again. Your coaching skills are what will make or break you and set you apart for success in this field. So if you're looking to level up your coaching skills, and maybe dial up your credential and become a board-eligible health coach, look no further. You can learn more about PHCI's Level 2 program at primalhealthcoach.com/level 2. But if you would value talking to a real person about your path to being a masterful coach and perhaps a board-certified coach, book some time with me personally. You can access my calendar at primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or just call me. You can reach me at 844-307-7662. Thank you for listening to Health Coach Radio, and I hope I get to talk to you soon.